Hello and welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I'm Columbian sports editor Micah Rice, joined first by Tim Martinez because we have a special episode today in which all of the Columbian sports department is going to weigh in on this weekend's spring state championships. But first of all, Tim, I gotta say we made it.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of people don't understand. I think they are a lot of high school sports fans are a little bit lucky in that we have a staff of 5 people who are able to report on the high school sports. A lot of media outlets in the state, they only have a 1-person staff or a 2-person staff, or some they only don't even have any at all. And so we were able to get all 5 of us out to events on Saturday, and we were thinking we wouldn't have enough bodies to get everywhere on this weekend, the final weekend of the state, which is always a problem, because everything is going on. And still, we won't get to everything this weekend, but we feel a little bit better about where we are, and because last week we were thinking, oh my gosh, are we going to go to Tri-Cities and Yakima and Lacey and Puyallup and Renton and Bellingham, and we knew already that we were going to Tacoma for the state track meet as we do every year. So I was wondering about, are we going to be running back and forth from different places? So we feel pretty good about where we are and where we'll be sending people. We'll have people up in Bellingham for you. We'll be up in Bellingham for the River Baseball. Will Denner will be at Puyallup for the Camas soccer, as well as over in Lacey for the 3A softball. He'll be kind of swinging between those 2 events. As we mentioned, Meg Wachnick will be at the 4A, 3A, 2A state track meet in Tacoma, as she always is. And I'll be heading out to Tri-Cities for 4A softball with Skyview and Battleground. Hopefully we can work a little 1A softball with Seton Catholic in there, and then also try to work in a little 4A tennis, because we've got a lot of good tennis going on over there. So, and then if things work out, we might even work Jeff Klein back into the equation this weekend too. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of the things, I think one of the reason I said we made it is we finally made it here to the final weekend of the 23-24 high school sports season. It has been a long road, but it culminates with this weekend at those events that you just mentioned. So let's talk softball first, because I think one of the standout stories for this spring certainly has been the play of the Skyview Storm. They enter the 4A state tournament undefeated, 22-0, the number 1 seed in that tournament. Maddie Milhorn, the junior Oregon commit, has had another fabulous season. I was going through her stats earlier this morning. She has only given up 6 earned runs in like 56 innings. Again, a strikeout to walk ratio of 6-1, and also hitting the cover off the ball, hitting over 450 with 7 home runs and over 40 RBIs.
Yeah, she's a special talent out there, and obviously a weapon to have when you're heading off to the state tournament. I was really interested in watching how Coach Kim Anthony worked with Maddie this year. It's like I went out to a game where they played Battleground late in the season, and Maddie was just dealing, just striking people out and getting, and the Battleground really couldn't get anything started. Camas put together, Skyview put together a run, and they went up by like 4 runs or 5 runs, and then Maddie came out after 4 innings, and they brought someone else in, and they went on to win that game 7-0. We've seen a lot of that where they kind of try to, manage her workload, because we know in previous seasons, injuries or just fatigue by this part has played a role in their late season run. So hopefully she's set up to come into this state tournament where they're going to play. They're hoping 4 games in 2 days against a really good competition, and hopefully they're now lined up to do well this weekend.
Well, I talked with Coach Kim Anthony about that strategy, and they've worked in, whether it's Malia Figueroa, Avery Henderson, or Reese Purdue, to take some of those innings, not only to kind of keep Maddie a little bit fresher, but Coach Anthony said there's actually a strategic value in that all 3 of them are so different in their types of pitching than Maddie, it's like after you've seen Maddie for a few innings to suddenly come in and have more of a finesse pitcher in the circle, it can really throw your timing off. So there's actually a strategic game behind that.
Yeah, a lot of times when you're facing a pitcher, especially here at State where you haven't seen the pitcher, you might not have seen the pitcher previously, there's always that, first couple of at bat kind of, getting adjusted. And so being able to do that, makes that harder for the other team, keeps them off balance.
Well, and I was able to see Skyview this past weekend in a very cold and ultimately wet bi-district tournament up in Kent, but you really got a sense of how Skyview wins. It's not only the pitching, but their lineup from top to bottom just has no holes. I mean, you have Matty Milhorn in the middle there. You also have near the top of the lineup a player like Taylor Lease, who ends up hitting, I think, 429 going into the state tournament. Then you have catcher Layla Royal, who started the season kind of at the bottom of the order, kind of a part-time catcher, but throughout the course of the season has moved up and is now consistently their cleanup hitter. She enters the state tournament hitting over 450. And then you add in players like Addie Harmier, Maya Figueroa, Emma Kaufman. I know I'm going to forget some people, but just up and down the lineup, Jenna Stockton, even Lainey Phillips, who kind of is in a platoon role, but had a fabulous bi-district tournament with a home run. There's just any part of that lineup 1 through 9 can get you.
Right, and I think the biggest thing from last week to take away is sometimes, especially in sports like softball or even to some effect baseball and soccer, is during the regular season teams they play locally, they play here in the region, and so you get an idea about who's the best teams in the region, but then you need to kind of see them go outside of the region to see how good they really are. So Skyview going up to that bi-district tournament, which typically brings a lot of good teams out of it, and to go out and to win that thing and win it pretty solidly kind of shows that Skyview's ready, and the seating committee certainly thought so because they put Skyview at number 1. Conversely, when you look at the 2A Greater St. Helens League, we thought we had some good teams going into possibly moving on to state, and we don't have any. So it's just and then the 3As. I think a lot of people who probably looked at the win-loss records of teams like Heritage and Kelso and Prairie probably weren't too impressed.
Right.
But that's because in their non-league, they ended up playing Skyview, Battleground, and Union, and all those teams. Took their lumps, learned that, went into league play, found their stride, and then they went up to Lacey, and they all 3 qualified for state. So Kelso Heritage, they'll be playing in the round of 20 on Thursday, trying to get into the regular bracket, and then Prairie went up there and won a state title, or won the bi-district title. So
yeah, I think I wanted to mention that about the 3As and just how different of a road it was for all those teams to make it through. I mean, you look at Prairie, they come in probably with a lot of confidence after being a decisive 3 Greater St. Helens League winner, number 4 seed in the tournament. So you're thinking, well, if they put all the pieces together, they could win. They didn't just win; they won handily, and were able to get some big hits from players like Mackenzie Moore and Peyton Blunt, and then solid pitching by Riley Wall. I think everything kind of came together in a perfect storm for Prairie to really have an impressive tournament.
Yeah, I think one game, I think Riley gave up 4 runs in the first inning, and they were in a bit of a hole, but then they put up like a 6-run third or fourth inning, and they just kept on adding on from there. And so really impressive run by the Falcons at the bi-district tournament. It's the same location where they're going to play state, so they're already used to the surroundings there. So.
Well, and then a fair amount of moxie and toughness shown by Heritage, being that they were knocked into kind of a loser-out situation pretty early in the tournament, won with their backs against the wall, had to go, had a second chance to make it to state, lost that, had to go into a winner to state loser out game, and were able to survive that to punch their ticket.
Yeah, so they had to play Kelso in their first winner to state game. So there's a league rival that they've seen before. And I think Heritage finished second in the league and Kelso was third, if I remember right. But Kelso got the Timberwolves in that winner to state game, the first, and so Kelso advanced on. And yeah, so then Heritage had to come back in against a Yelm team to get that final spot, and so they got it. So I think Heritage has been here before because they did it last year. They
3 times in a row.
They went to but last year particularly they went to this round of 20 and they won it, and then they got into the double elimination part of the bracket. So I think they've been in this position now twice before. They've won it once. And I think that gives them a little bit of experience and confidence going into Thursday that hopefully we'll get them into the double elimination bracket.
Well, if the timing works out, you'll be able to hop over and check out Seton Catholic in the 1A tournament. How should the Cougars feel about going into that tournament?
The Cougars should feel pretty good. So they lost the district title game to Montesano. I think they lost 5-3 to Montesano. Montesano ended up being the number 1 seed going into the state tournament. So they got to feel pretty good about that. The way the 1A state tournament bracket, it's only a 12-team bracket. And so I think Seton's the 6th seed. So there's a round of 12 that is a loser out kind of game. It's kind of a funky situation, If you're a 16-team tournament, you get a double elimination bracket, but if you're 12, you get to play this loser out first round game. It's kind of a funky situation. But if Seton can win the Thursday round of 12 game, they'll be all the way, I think, to the quarterfinals on Friday. And so hopefully they win that, because I'm not going to get to Tri-Cities on Thursday in time for the 3 o'clock game, but I'm hoping they advance and play. I think it's at 1 o'clock on Friday, and then I get to see a little bit of the Seton Cougars as well.
Well, you're traveling east. I am traveling north, way north, almost into Canada, because Bellingham is where the 2A baseball Final Four is. And we have had one of the most consistent teams in our area, the Columbia River Rapids, reach the Final Four as the number 2 seed. They play Friday morning against number 6 Linden, which is just down the road. Yeah. They won't have to travel at all. But the Rapids, they come in with a lot of momentum after winning 2 games at Propstra Stadium, beating White River, then beating district rival WF West in the quarterfinals to punch their ticket to Bellingham. We talk about the senior leadership on that team with the 14 seniors, and what a crowning achievement this is to reach the Final Four, and if they could write their script, walk off with a state championship trophy.
Right, you talk about those seniors. I think Stephen Donahue said they had like 14 seniors or something on the roster. A lot of those seniors were on the team 2 years ago when they made it to the state semifinals, made it to the state championship game 2 years ago in Yakima. So I know that when I talked to Chris Parkin earlier this year, he's like saying, he kind of feels like we've been there. He had been there before, but this year it's kind of like their big opportunity to kind of cash in. So they won 2 games last week. They won 2 games the way River wins games. They play defense. They pitch really well, and they get some clutch hitting. And it served them well last week, and I'm sure they're hoping to use the same formula this weekend. Heading up to Bellingham.
Well, waiting the winner of the Columbia River Linden game is number 1 seed Enumclaw or number 4 seed Anacortes. So it's going to be, I think, just a really high quality level of baseball in that Final Four pod there at Joe Martin Stadium in Bellingham. I love Bellingham. I think it's a great town, but it's a little unfortunate that it sort of sits out on this island, because that's if you make the trip, you're going to see some great baseball there.
Yeah, the one concern this weekend is there are some raindrops in the forecast, the chance of it, and so you just don't know how that, like last Saturday, I remember every day I go out to an event in the spring, I check my phone and see what the forecast is. And I checked my phone on Saturday, and I didn't see any raindrops on the forecast. And it wasn't until I saw your tweet from up in Kent, and it's like, oh, the game just ended, a good thing, because here's the radar about rain coming. And I was like, oh, it's raining up in the Puget Sound, it stinks for them. And then I headed out to Camas, and as I was heading out, got some sprinkles on my windshield, and I went, oh, better grab the umbrella. And I get out there, and it starts steadily raining, and then they start the game, they play about an inning or so, and then they stop it for about 5 to 7 because it was just pouring, and then it let off, and they were able to finish the game. So hopefully we don't get any repeat of that, because we've got some baseball and softball. Even though the playing fields may be all weather, if it gets too wet, they can't handle the ball, they can't grip the ball, then they gotta wait it out. So
well, and I think anytime you think your talent matches up and you have the more talent of any team there, you want as few external variables as possible.
You don't want to start a pitcher, go 2 innings, especially in baseball, and then have a 20, 30 minute delay. And then you got to make a decision. Do you bring the kid back? Do you bring someone in new or something like that? So different variables and things like that is things you don't want to deal with. So hopefully we won't.
Yeah, keep those raindrops away, and we'll be looking forward to some high quality diamond action this weekend. All right, I'm joined now by Meg Wachnick, and we're here to talk some track and field because you will be up in Tacoma at the state track and field meet for classes 2A through 4A at Mount Tahoma High School. Always a grand spectacle, always some great performances, including those by Southwest Washington athletes. So we'll look at a few of the athletes we think are prime contenders for state titles, and we got to start with these two shot putters that you profiled in a story in Tuesday's Columbian. Juan Pasillas-Stanton of Mountain View and Will Foster of Prairie. Hopefully you read the story, but these two have just been one-upping each other, pushing each other all the way over 58 feet for lifetime best marks. They're also best friends. They train together, even though they attend different schools. They go toe-to-toe in the 3A boys shot put finals on Thursday. What are you expecting to see up there in Tacoma?
Honestly, I'm expecting to see everything that we've seen up to this point, right? I think what makes it special is not only are they great competitors and friends, but this will be the 8th time this spring that they have faced off. I mean, it's more than just your typical dual meet and invitational. They've competed at some elite meets, such as historic Hayward Field for the Oregon Relays, the Nike Jesuit meet last month. So these guys, like you said, have gone toe-to-toe. It is a completely epic competition every time these two go at it, and usually the winner comes out on top on their final throw of the competition. So I expect nothing short of that on Thursday evening.
Well, that's exactly what I saw the first time I kind of noticed these two. I was volunteering at the Columbia River Twilight meet, kind of helping my wife out near the shot put ring, and same thing, Will Foster and Juan Pasillas-Stanton just kind of go toe-to-toe. Will Foster uncorks a big throw. He's leading going into the final round, where what happens, Juan puts together a big throw, a personal best at that time, and beats him at the end. And that's when we first started sort of saying, like, maybe there's a story here. And then over the course of the weeks, neither of them fell off. They just kept one-upping each other, getting better and better, and here they are separated by just an inch or two.
It's actually 3/4 of an inch. So 58-11.5 for Pasillas-Stanton. He goes in Thursday as the number 1 overall seed, a mark that he threw at by districts. And just 3/4 inch behind him is Will Foster, a mark that he accomplished 2 weeks ago at the district meet over at McKenzie and Evergreen. But what makes this story just so remarkable is just how they even got to this point. I mean, Will Foster was pretty much a self-proclaimed discus guy last year. He placed 13th at state, didn't make the finals, but he really worked on that technique this offseason, and so did Juan Pasillas-Stanton. He was a kid who actually didn't have a personal best at all last year as a sophomore, and then comes out improving over 6 feet in the last 2.5 months. So it's pretty remarkable to see what they've achieved. I mean, you don't have to go very far to see some of your best competition statewide. These guys are just separated by a couple of miles, so it's pretty remarkable, and it's only going to get better on Thursday.
Well, and there's even a chance, and you mentioned the story of a 1-2-3 Greater St. Helens League sweep with Wyatt Gallipo.
It's a Prairie, yeah. So he has the 4th best mark entering the meet at state. So he's a kid who popped a 53-footer 2 weeks ago at by district, so it's only a matter of time. This would be the first time that a Greater St. Helens school 4A or 3A has gone 1-2-3 in the event. If you remember John Lawson of Prairie back about a decade ago, he led a 1-2 sweep back in 2010 for the first of his 2 back-to-back 3A shot put titles. So it's going to be a fantastic meet. I can't wait to see it. So I've got my spot already reserved at Mount Tahoma Stadium for it.
All right. Well, we might see a local champion in the shot put on Thursday. We might also see a local champion Friday in the boys pole vault. We have Chase McGee at the Class 4A. We've covered his story. He's over 16 feet, ranked number 1 in Class 4A. Might get a good challenge from the kid from Lewis and Clark. But there's also a couple of 2A pole vaulters that could duke it out for the title.
There are. So Washougal's Tanner Hadley and Eli Wenger of Columbia River have been basically neck and neck all year. And just like Pasillas-Stanton and Foster with those guys in the shot, they've pretty much duked it out every time they've gone at it as well. You think back to the Twilight meet when Hadley went 15 feet going for a school record at Washougal. And Eli is right there at 14.6 and has been very close, just a calf away, basically, from hitting that 15-foot mark as well. So it's going to be a pretty amazing 3 days of state competition. But you mentioned Chase McGee. This is a kid who's already gone over 16 feet, broken Camus's school record, and he's done it also at some big-time meets. He won the Oregon Relays last month. Was just kind of that aha moment of McGee and what he can accomplish. So I have no doubt that this kid can go even farther and possibly even go 16.6, which if you get to that 16-foot mark in the boys pole vault, that's pretty much an elite status. So don't be surprised if he goes over that and more on Friday morning.
Well, only a junior, so there's more to come for Chase.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Eli Winger from Columbia River. Columbia River has a really deep team they're bringing up to Tacoma. Multiple athletes that might contend for state titles. How realistic should Columbia River's hopes be of getting a team trophy up there?
You know, I think there's a really good shot. You're right. Anything can happen at the state meet, right? It's all about what you do over those 3 days that will determine your points. But this is the first time that River has really felt that it has enough power going into a state meet to contend for a boys team title. In Clark County, there's only been one other team on the boys side that has captured a team title, and that was Camus back in 2018. If you remember names like Daniel Maton, who was the standout middle distance runner, setting records, winning state championships. So that was the only time in Clark County during the era of the state sanctioned meet from the WI back in the early 70s. So, you look across the board. It starts with Revac Banfield in the sprints. He is a title contender in the 100 and the 200, and also anchors the Rivers 4x1 relay team, which is one of the favorites coming in given their seed time. You've got two standout discus throwers, Riker Lukua and Nico Valdez. Both are going to be probably top 8 placers if they do what they have done all season. You got John Reeder in the long and the triple jump. And you can't finish this without talking about the two standout distance runners, Neftali Menendez and Jacob McManus. Those two guys, they push each other every day at practice, and they've done it in cross country as well as this spring season. So especially for McManus, this will be his first time competing at the state meet. He had a fantastic cross country season in November, and it's going to be some pretty good magic if everything goes well for River this week.
Well, we've talked about a lot of boys that might be contending for state titles. Who on the girls' side is on your radar?
So someone who is new to high school track this season, and that's Paris Ackerman of Hudson's Bay. She is not only a title favorite in the long jump, but she has some tremendous times in the 200 and the 400 as well. She's not very big when you look at her, but she is awfully fast and completely powerful. So watching her at the district meet up in Tumwater last week, you can tell that she's really an elite athlete. So she did not compete in track and field as a 9th grader last year for Bay, but she's come on the scene all spring. And not only that, but she's competed in a few open meets, primarily at Linfield University. And you're allowed to do that as a high school kid as long as you don't wear any of your high school gear or essentially register as a high school athlete. So she's competed against college level athletes a handful of times this year. So you got to think that's got to be certainly a benefactor going into the state meet when you have some of that elite experience.
Well, it's going to be an exciting week. I just embrace the chaos, I always say, when you're at a big event like that. So we can't wait to see how the local athletes do, and we'll be following along for sure. All right, those of you who watch the show every week, we have a new face for you. Let me introduce you to Jeff Klein. He's one of the guys behind the scene who does a lot of great things for the department, including page layout and kind of keeping us all organized. And but you are also our resident tennis expert.
I am,
and
I guess.
And so you're going to be following the state tennis tournaments this weekend. We have actually some local action in the 3As at Vancouver Tennis Center.
We do, and this is the 3rd or 4th time it's been at Vancouver Tennis Center, and it's been 2 years in a row now, and they'll get it later, a couple of years down the road as well. But the 3As will be there. We will have a few 3A players involved in that. The ones you probably want to look for include Elsa Bice of Prairie. She's a singles player. She's in the loser out bracket that plays into the first round. She was there last year as well. She's been playing a lot better lately, so perhaps she can win one, get into the main draw, and then have a couple more matches after that. The girls team you want to watch is from Mountain View. Lexi Frost and Bryn DeSantis, they are doubles team that are in the main draw. They were last year as well and didn't win, but they're playing better. They're a year under their belts. They know what's going on. So get out there and root them on. And as the Vancouver Tennis Center pointed out, tight parking, but Fort Vancouver High School is right nearby. Use that. They'll have food trucks, and it'll be great tennis.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about spring is that the state championships are pretty much scattered all over the state, from Bellingham to Tri-Cities to Tacoma, but we have our own little foothold here at Vancouver Tennis Center. The 4As are also going to be an interesting tournament when it comes to Southwest Washington players, mainly from Camas. Who should we look for at the 4A?
Camas has a grand total of 15 players at state this year.
Wow.
That's counting singles and doubles. But who you want to watch for is Haley Kirker. She's a junior. She is the 2-time defending state champion and is looking for a third, and is very confident that she can probably get at least to the final this year. She's playing very well.
Well, with her, it's been kind of against a girl from Bellarmine, right? That has been her main challenge.
It has. However, that girl is playing doubles this year. So now it's going to be her sister's problem, because her sister, Taryn, and her partner, Fiona Yee of Camas, they are in the doubles bracket on the opposite side. So that could be a final, perhaps.
What other players in that tournament might be worth paying attention to?
Well, Camas has 3 girls playing singles. They have a doubles team, as we talked about, and we have Union in doubles as well. Sadly, some of those are paired against each other, so somebody's gonna get knocked out by maybe a team from here. We don't know yet, but that could happen. Boys' side, though, going back to the fall, we also have a Camas player, we have a Union player, we have a Skyview player. Rowan Thawani of Union is a 3-time state participant. He could do very well this year. Looking forward to that. We also have Leo Zhao of Camas, who also did well last year at state. And we have Aiden Buzaran of Skyview, 2-time state player as well. In the doubles, you want to watch Aiden Brazier and Tommy James of Camas, because they went very far last year. They could do it again this year. One of them could be our state player of the year, to be determined, but they're rolling right into it. So this break between fall and spring, sometimes it's not detrimental to these players because they play all the time.
Yes. Well, if we end with the 2As, are those still up at University of Washington?
They are, and Columbia River has a ton of players up there and could contend for a girls' team title if all goes well.
Who are the ones that we should look forward to? I mean, obviously you have a great doubles tandem, as they always have, and some singles standouts.
Yes, your top singles player from River is Emma Lungwitz, but also they had a freshman come up this year and beat Emma in the bi-district for the teammates playing each other, Jenny Serabakova, and she's playing very well too, and she's very confident, even though she's not been to a state tournament yet. So that could be interesting to watch as well. But yes, in doubles also, you have Sydney Dreves, who is a 3-time state player. She has won a title last year with her sister, who is an Auburn volleyball player now.
Yes.
So she has a different partner for the 3rd time. And this year it's Annie Morgan. And they have played very well all season, only, I believe, maybe 1 loss, maybe no losses, but still right up there with the top echelon of doubles.
All right. Well, all the sports bring excitement, and that especially seems true with tennis. So be sure to follow along with those this weekend. Okay, here to talk some soccer now is Will Denner. And Will, you will be up in Puyallup this weekend at Sparks Stadium, where Camas enters the Final Four as the number 4 seed. Camas, now they're the number 1 ranked team in the RPI, but we all know RPI doesn't mean everything. But the Papermakers they're coming in with 2 games that they were really tested to get to the Final Four. A 3-2 win in the first round, followed by a 1-0 win over Chiawana. They play number 1 seed Pasco, which is 20-1 coming into the semifinals. What do you think Camas needs to do to get past the Bulldogs and into that championship match?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just a continuation of what they've been able to do now for almost the past 2 months. They've been tested, I think, in a variety of ways and kind of won these games during this 14-game win streak in a variety of ways. They've had the come from behind wins. The games like in their bye district, it was against Union, and then at State, the most recent game in the quarterfinals against Chiawana, it was a game where they scored relatively early and were able to keep their opponent in a clean sheet and just roll to victory that way. But they'll face a team that they know well. It was Pasco that defeated them 2 years ago in the state quarterfinals, and they will have another test against them now. And I think it's just a really kind of deep group for Camas and one that they can get scoring from a variety of places. Their back line is pretty seasoned at this point. They have a good goalkeeper in Will Tavez. So they should feel pretty confident going into their first state appearance, Final Four state appearance, that is, since 2011.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where they were consistently tested every time they ran up in the regular season against Union. So this level of competition isn't going to be any surprise.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this before. It's, they really made a point of scheduling a tough non-league slate as well against state, contenders like Davis and Puyallup, and then obviously to have a team like Union in your backyard as well. And obviously they had some phenomenal battles this year, but really just a good kind of show of resiliency for this Camas team that had a couple losses early in this year. Feel like they kind of really found out their identity a little bit more after that loss to Union in late March and in overtime. And they've last year I would say was somewhat of a transition year for them. They welcomed kind of a first year head coach in Josh Stoller, who previously was a co-head coach along with longtime coach Roland Minder. And now after they fell short last year in the bi-district round, they were able to get back to state, and it seems like they're kind of entering now a new phase for the program and kind of continuing that tradition.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at the tradition, especially on the girls' side of the Camas program, but also on the boys, they have a tradition that goes back with multiple Final Four appearances, but none since 2011. So
Right.
This is, for this group, this is new territory.
100%. Yeah. It's kind of hard to believe that, just because of all the great soccer teams we have down in this area. If you had said going into the year that Camas would be the last team standing, I'd be kind of surprised. And it's not a knock against Camas, but also just kind of goes to show, our teams like Columbia River and Seton Catholic, obviously teams that were in the state Final Four last year. But for Camas really to continue this, it'll be great for their younger players to get a chance to, return next year after this experience, and for their seniors. It's a great send-off, and really a good showcase of just what a phenomenal year they've had.
Yeah, so Camas versus number 1 seed Pasco on Friday. The winner plays either number 6 Sunnyside or number 10 Mount Si in the championship game. Obviously, if you go straight by the seeds, you would say whoever wins the Camas Pasco match will be the favorite in the championship match, but you've probably watched enough soccer, that doesn't always hold true. So it's going to be a tough matchup, whether it's for the championship or the third place game for Camas on Saturday. But again, great accomplishments for that program this year.
Yeah, no doubt.